Hello, composers. As always, begin the week by going over the pieces your classmates created last week and filling out the feedback form. Also, check for my responses to your proposals for Comp Project 1. This week, we're going to focus on the idea of musical flow as you work on your first composition projects. I'm not referring to flow here in the sense of being in the zone when improvising or otherwise performing, although that is important too, but more in the sense of creating a piece that seamlessly weaves ideas together into a whole that's attractive to listeners. This is actually harder than you may think. One of the major challenges for composers in all stages of their career is the development and transition of ideas. We've talked about this already, but nothing kills the ebb and flow of a musical line quicker than crashing into a brick wall of silence, either a rest or a full stop. It's just infuriating for listeners. You get the idea. As strategies to get around this, we've looked at the idea of eliding and overlapping phrases to continue movement across the end of one phrase and the beginning of another. To review, in an elided phrase, you're briefly touching the concluding note. We can dispense with the idea that it's always a tonic from here on out, without stopping. The new phrase uses this concluding note as a shared point. It starts there, but moves on immediately. Overlapping phrases are just as the name implies. One phrase begins while another one is already playing, so that when the first phrase ends, the second one plays on. The overlap can be small, just a few notes, but it's longer than an elision and usually incorporates multiple parts. But there are other ways to keep movement and momentum going through a piece. Let's look at a few major ones: looping, oscillating, and bringing back motives. Looping is the easiest to explain. You take an idea and you keep repeating it. A lot. You can add other loops on top of this, or you can use the looped idea as an ostinato and develop other material on top of it. Be aware, however, that using it as a static contrast to the development of new material is generally the better approach. Doing this allows for the changes you're making to become very, very audible to the audience, and is great for when you want to be obvious about your transitions between sections, or that you're introducing new material. However, just repeating an idea endlessly gets boring really quickly, and will come across as being filler material to most people. Oscillating is moving back and forth between 2 points, or close approximations of 2 points. This could be transitions between 2 pitches, 2 rhythms, exchanging parts between 2 different performers. The excerpt from week 1 in the Moldau that we looked at uses all of these in the opening flute duet. Or you could do things like changes of register, timbre, or texture. Done well, as Smetana did, it's a really nice way to play with the idea of call and response, but to also slowly introduce changes from one major idea to another over time. This is great for the development of material, but it is not and should not be an end in and of itself. In his book Formalized Music, the composer, architect, and computer scientist Yannis Xenakis looks at the use of computers as compositional aids in his work, specifically in the use of set theory, game theory, and the distribution of events via probability theory. He notes that no matter what algorithm or programming language or methodology used, without human interference, there are three likely outcomes. The process continues statically forever, which is looping. The process continues with changes either accelerating to infinity, or statistical 1, or entropy, statistical 0. So it keeps going and repeating and getting higher and higher, or louder and louder, or faster and faster, or it's a continual decrescendo at some level. Or the process eventually settles into a harmonic pattern of oscillating between two or more states. In all cases, these become compositional dead ends and thus should be avoided. Or, in his words, know when to cheat and change the input or the algorithm. Oscillation only goes so far because it just becomes another loop after so many repetitions. Finally, there's bringing back motives from previous parts of the piece. Taking small fragments of the melody, recurring rhythms, or harmonic ideas, and reusing them helps to add stability to the listener's frame of reference by recalling earlier ideas. Keep in mind that music occurs over time, so bringing these ideas back will bring them back to the listener's attention. It then shows the contrast to what you're currently doing and serves as a point of departure. The motives can also be transformed and developed further through techniques like augmentation, making all the rhythmic values longer, diminution, making all the rhythmic values shorter, stretto, layering multiple motives on top of each other at different rhythmic levels, reharmonization, melodic transformation through inversion, retrograde, transposition, or any combination thereof, or my personal favorite, mutation. For mutation, take two motives and consider what would happen if you combined aspects of the two together. What if you took the rhythm of motive 1 and the pitches of motive 2 and used those to generate motive 3? Or what if you reharmonized motive 2 with the ideas of motive 7 to get motive 8? In each case, you're playing the role of a mad geneticist, splicing the genes from two parent motives to create a new generation of musical ideas, and then repeating the process until you get the perfect motive. In any case, these techniques, eliding or overlapping phrases, looping, oscillating, and reusing motives, will help to make your music flow and avoid unnecessarily jerky stops and starts. And while those may be appropriate for some pieces, in general, it's best to focus on keeping everything smooth, especially when we start writing for voices in week 8.